As an accountant, I deal strictly in numbers and verifiable information. If I encounter something that lacks a logical explanation, I assume I simply haven't gathered enough data yet. That mindset guided my wife and me when we bought our first house, a 1940s colonial in rural upstate New York. We secured a substantial discount on the property. The realtor mentioned the previous owner, an older gentleman, had died of natural causes inside the house, and we accepted that as a mundane biological fact. We moved in and embraced the quiet. But treating every unknown as a perfectly rational data point waiting to be solved creates a severe blind spot. It leaves you unguarded when you encounter a variable that defies calculation entirely. 3 weeks into our time at the house, my wife was unpacking the spare bedroom and found an item wedged tight behind the old radiator. It was a vintage, slightly water-damaged photograph. The picture showed our exact backyard from decades ago, identifiable by the distinct shape of the tree line and the snow on the ground. And standing at the far edge, half hidden between two oaks, was a tall, unnervingly thin figure. We looked at the silhouette and made a perfectly logical assumption. We figured someone took a candid shot of the previous owner out for a walk in the snow, so I filed it away in a drawer. Yet the old image nagged at me. The figure in the photo had no blurred edges to suggest movement. He was completely still, facing the house. I returned to that drawer several times that evening, searching for any detail, a blur or a shadow, that would turn the figure into a person instead of a fixture. Finding none, I forced myself to close the drawer and move on. We decided to gather actual data. My wife purchased a motion-activated infrared trail camera, clipping it to a tree facing the woods to track whatever local wildlife was passing through at night. When we checked the laptop the following morning, the camera had triggered at 2:14 a.m. The infrared lens captured the exact same tall, thin figure from the old photograph, standing in the dark, staring directly at the house. We called the local police. Responding officers found a single set of tracks in the snow, leading from deep in the woods to the tree line and back again. They found no shelter, no trash, and no sign of any human being living out there. This calendar visualizes the escalating activity. Over 3 weeks between midnight and 4 a.m., the camera triggered 14 times. The figure stood perfectly still, but night by night he shifted, adjusting his angle along the tree line in deliberate increments. We applied rigorous observation to the problem, expecting to find a natural explanation. Instead, mapping out these precise movements only quantified a methodical, terrifying approach. We abandoned our bedroom and moved our mattress to a second-floor room at the front of the house. Then the established pattern broke. The trail camera failed to trigger from the distant tree line. It triggered at 3:47 a.m. on our back porch. The subject had closed the distance entirely. The infrared caught his face in sharp detail, right outside the kitchen. He had deep-set eyes, hollow cheeks, and a completely blank expression. His right hand was pressed flat against the glass of the kitchen door. He was resting his palm there, as a feeling for the warmth on the other side of the pane. The distance between the observer and the observed vanished completely. The curiosity tracked at the edge of the property was now actively testing the glass. I printed the infrared image, brought it directly to the police station, and filed a formal public records request for our address. A timeline tracks 15 years of identical police reports from the previous owner. Each described a figure at the tree line. As it crept closer, officers noted his growing distress. 8 months after the final report, he died alone of natural causes. These records placed our experience within a 15-year sequence. We were merely the latest data points in a documented cycle of escalation. 2 weeks later, we put the house on the market. While packing to leave, I opened the spare bedroom drawer and took out that original vintage photograph for one final look. I scanned the snowy yard and the figure. Then I looked at the upper right corner of the image. Behind the glass of the house's back window, faintly visible in the dark, was a terrified face. The old man wasn't the figure out in the cold. He was the face inside the house. He was trapped in there, watching the entity slowly cross his yard over the course of decades. We sold the house at a massive loss. We moved back to a city apartment on the ground floor, surrounded entirely by concrete, with no woods within a mile in any direction. Some variables are identifiable but entirely uncontrollable. We escaped the property, but the data suggests that for 15 years, the previous owner sat exactly where we sat, watching as the distance between the trees and the glass slowly narrowed to zero.